Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Welcome into the Chicago Sports Podcast. Glad to have you guys with us tonight. Monsters of the Madhouse, as we are here talking all things Chicago Bears, talking all things football, and talking all things 10-game losing streak, guys. I feel like every week we come in here, we're talking about a new losing streak, and I can't keep track of them, although I did keep track of last night's losing streak because we're going to get into it. I was pissed, man. I think this is the first one in a long time where I was just pissed off about the team, pissed off about what was going on in the game and our players. I'm going to get to that one second, but I want to introduce to you guys our guys that we have with us tonight. We got Chris and Jamari. Chris, Jamari, what's going on, guys? Happy holidays.
Happy
holidays, you too. I'm saying that game was.
It was wonderful.
Oh,
it was fun to watch, man. It was setting football back by 20 years. What are you talking about? That's how offense is played in. That's how offense is played in 2024, guys. That's the way you watched it last night. Was the way you watch offense, isn't it? Come on, am I wrong here? Agree with me here?
If you want the top 10 picks in the draft, yeah, that's the best way the offense is supposed to play in 2024. I mean, that's what you're trying to get, yeah. But oh man, it's if it's not one thing, it's always another. We'll get into it, but you know.
Yeah. We'll get into it, guys. By the way, you guys can watch and like and subscribe our YouTube channel, our YouTube page, and you keep a track of the shows going along. The notifications will pop up when our shows pop up as well. We have new shows here all the time, especially if you're a new listener right now. We thank you, and to everybody else. We got the chat room flowing right now. We got Cliff checking in, so you guys can leave a comment in the chat. And thank you so much for all of your support for the Chicago Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. As we are talking about Ryan Poles, as the clock run out on Ryan Poles as general manager of the Chicago Bears, as we got one football game left as we take on the Packers here in the following week. And that is it for our season, a season that is about as disappointing as can be, a season that where a lot of us thought we were going to make leaps and bounds and be a little bit better and talking about playoffs. Well, all of that stuff is kind of thrown out the window. It's thrown off the window right now. And we just don't know what the hell is going to happen next. So we're going to break it down here, guys. So before we get to that, I mean, the thought of last night's game, and guys, we were talking about this before we jumped on the show today. You know, a lot of times I come on these shows and I try to be positive because you like to see positivity in everybody. You like to see happiness, and it's the holidays. You shouldn't be pissed off all the time and negative. But last night was really the first time I was angry. I was really angry. Maybe since the Patriots game, I had to think about that for a second. Maybe since the Patriots game, where I thought to myself, I'm like, what the hell is going on with this team? I'm like, what is going on? What type of players do we have on here? Do we have the wrong players? Because I'm so sick and tired of blaming the coaches. I'm tired of it. Yes, the general manager, Ryan Poles, who we're talking about in this show today, he got it wrong, got the head coach wrong. But I'm tired of putting all the onus on head coaches. And at some point, you got to look at these players and how the players go on the field and how they perform. And last night, especially for offense, guys, as we opened up the show, that was about as bad as an offensive performance as I've seen in a very long time. It sets back football for a very long time. I mean, 3 points to go against that team, against that Seahawks team, which is not very good. We watched them play yesterday, guys. They got good players on defense, yes. But Geno Smith didn't look healthy in that game. He looked like, and Chris, we were talking about it. He looked like it looks like he was still favoring his knee. I didn't think he looked healthy the entire game. I didn't think their offense looked right. And I'm like, that team's not that good. Maybe they go to the playoffs. I don't know. But at the same time, Chris, when you first take a look at that game yesterday, when you first look at the offense, what's the first thing that stands out to you when you look at the performance of the offense?
The same thing I've been saying when it comes to this season. They cannot get out of their own way, their own mistakes. They cannot overcome them. Whether it be Caleb Williams sailing the ball over across the middle of Roma Dunze, or it could be protection not holding up, or him holding on to the ball too long. There was like part of that game, they were running zero blitz and there was no hot reads. There was no shifted protection. It was just snap the ball and Caleb run for your life and try to make a throw. That is not winning football. That is not a recipe that is going to get you a lot of points or even first downs for that matter. And it's just it. As much as we keep saying we're tired of talking about the coaching, it is still the coaching because you can have all this talent that this offense has on the outside as far as the skilled players. But if the coaching ain't putting the best use of that, then what is the point? And it's getting frustrating to this point because there's no excuse to have you have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, you have Caleb Williams, you have Cole Kmet, and you only score 3 points. Like that, it's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Yeah, to Chris's point, Jamari, we're talking about coaching and in the offense. And what's the thing that stood out to you? Listen, Thomas Brown, man, I hope Thomas Brown next year he's going to get an opportunity to go somewhere. I don't think he's going to be the head coach of this team. I think we're going to go in another direction unless something really surprises me. But I do think he's playing for a job next year. I think he's playing to be an offensive coordinator somewhere, and I hope he does. But we're asking a lot from this guy, man. We're asking a lot from this guy to be the passing game coordinator to get hired in the beginning of the season, the offensive coordinator to being somewhere else up top in the press box to being the head coach right now. What does that say? What does that say about the Bears itself? What does that say about our general manager? What does that say about Ryan Poles? Is it a little too much for Thomas Brown at this point, Jamari?
Right now, I do think it's a little bit too much for Thomas Brown because, I mean, what was he, the passing coordinator when he first came here? And then now, next thing you know, you got him calling plays, and now he's the head coach. So right now, I think they put a little bit too much on his plate. And on top of that, it's not like he's running his own offense. He's still running the playbook that Waldron brought in. So this isn't his philosophy. Um, so I don't think his story's fully written yet, but I think we'll be moving on from him after this season, obviously. Um, so yeah, like I think the writing's on the wall for him at the end of the season.
Thank you guys for watching the Chicago Sports Podcast tonight, Monsters of the Madhouse. I see you guys all in the chat right now. I got Cliff in here. Hello, Cliff. Jerome, what's going on? Crooked Commish. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight's show. So here's what really was making me upset about yesterday's game, guys. And this goes all back to Ryan Poles, too. And I was talking a little bit about the coaching, and yeah, and to your point, Chris, yes, I agree with you too. I agree. This is also on the coaching. This is on everybody. This is on everybody as a whole. When you lose 10 games in a row, it's not just on one person. But there's a lot to be on there too with Thomas Brown and the way he managed it and the clock management yesterday's game. But when I'm watching that game yesterday, Caleb Williams, yes, looks like a quarterback that's going to be very good for us for a long time. He's got his throws, especially when he's on the run. He makes those special throws and throws that I don't think a lot of other quarterbacks can make. And then there's other throws during that game where I think he gets in right position. He plants his feet down, and he's still a little bit inaccurate. But that's a first-year quarterback. I understand that. But I think the future is bright for our quarterback. Our offensive line is what he put together in this offseason. And we've been talking about it each week, and I feel like sometimes we overblow it on the offensive line. But looking at that game yesterday, they had 7 sacks, the Seahawks, 7 sacks. Another multi-sack game for certain players. They got good players on the Seattle defense, don't get me wrong, but 7 sacks in that game yesterday. And I'm looking at that offensive line. That is the offensive line that was assembled here for the beginning of the year. And we keep talking about how we're going to we have players that we need to get in position or players that we're going to have to get in the offseason. But Darnell Wright has had a good year. Other than that, coming back for next year, who else is coming back on that offensive line next year? Maybe Braxton Jones to compete with somebody. I mean, when we talk about what this team needs, and you hear like, well, this team is just not that far away. Well, hold on a second here. When I'm watching this offensive line right now, and you need to tell me that we need 4 new starters going into next year, 4 new starters on top of having no depth on our offensive line right now, because our depth is definitely being exposed. We're playing with backups yesterday. We had a 3rd-round pick that didn't even start yesterday that should be starting right now because it's week 16, week 17 in the season, and a 3rd-round pick should be playing, but he didn't play yesterday because he's not good enough. So between our depth and the starters next year, I want to know how this is going to get better. Tell me how this is going to get better in one offseason when you need that many players to replace.
Well, we're one of the best teams as far as like cap is concerned, so you can make use of that. But also in the draft, if he goes anywhere other than the trenches, then he should be fired right after that. There should be no reason why you're not attacking the trenches when it comes to the draft. I don't even care if he has the second pick, the third pick, the fifth pick. Trade down, get more picks, and just attack the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive front. You have to protect the passer and get after the other passer. That's the best one of the main things you see the best teams do. And with this offensive line, and then on top of that, you have to be able to have something prepared for if someone goes cover zero and blitzes you right off the bat. Like there was too many plays where it was right off the left tackle, two guys right there, one guy, or both guys get free, and Caleb's running for his life. That should not happen. It didn't look like there was any really like there wasn't enough hot reads or anything like that. Like there's nothing really helping Caleb except for him running for his life, trying to make a throw, going cross body. That's not a winning recipe, man. That's not. It's not giving this kid the best chance to succeed. And he shows the flashes. He shows that he has the arm talent. And if he's given the right amount of time, he can make the throws. He's been doing it all year. Where he showed the flash of greatness that he can be if he's put in that position. And the way this line is set up is not. The way this team is set up as far as like the coaching staff, offensive line, and play calling, it is not set up him to be his best at all.
And Chris and Jamari, to Chris's point too, as we talk about the offensive line. When you watched the game yesterday, what has stood out to you? The play that you thought any guy on the line that stood out to you that could have played better, or where you think our biggest holes could be going into the offseason?
Well, Chris just said it all. I mean, really, nobody really stood out to me on the line. Like, I see us really having to replace four guys. I don't see Tevin coming back. Braxton is probably going to be competing for a backup job. Um, like Chris said, like it's annoying. Why? Like you can see the blitzes coming. Like they put everybody on the line. We don't have no hot reads. Like, um, what was it, the last play of the game, they was in a bunch formation, and it's like, how are you supposed to, like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? There was no screen or no quick outlet, like, so we not really doing anything to help Caleb, like in terms of beating the blitz. I think I seen that he is one of the best like quarterbacks attacking the blitz, and I think it was either yesterday or last week when I think Minnesota was even blitzing, and even when Caleb's getting the ball out, we're dropping the ball. So I mean, I think next year we gonna have to bring in first. It starts with the offensive line coach. What are they teaching the line? Because even like when we run, they don't know how to block our runs. So I think it starts with getting the offensive line coach that's gonna coach him.
Oh, I think we just lost.
Do you guys
We
hear?
just lost you. Yeah, we just lost you there for a second, Jamari.
Hello.
You're all good to go. Well, I don't think he can hear us anymore. See, this is what happens when you get upset with the offensive line, Chris. We lose each other, man. We lose our togetherness with everything, man. We get fired up as we talk about our offensive line.
What?
But Chris,
I went out. I'm sorry, guys.
No, yeah, we can hear you now, Jabari.
Do you want me to continue my thought or?
Yeah, keep going, man. Keep going. Up. As I jinxed him again, and he went back out. As I told him to keep going. We'll get back to you here in a second, Jamari, as we talk about the offensive line. And I think here's the prayer. I think this is what my issue is here. The way that this team has been put together, guys, and we're just talking about the offensive line for now, too. Thank you guys for watching too the Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. We appreciate your guys' support. Like and subscribe on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, and you guys can get all of our shows and everybody in the chat room too. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I see you guys all in there. Jerome and Don just checked in here too. Detroit versus everybody. We're going to see a lot of that as they go into the playoffs. But we're talking about the offensive line here, Chris, and I think this is where I have an issue now, because if this was the first year of the Ryan Poles regime where he tore everything down, and listen, this is what they said. They said they had a plan in place. Their plan was in place, and they were going to tear everything down. But here we are. We're into year number 3, into the Ryan Poles regime, and we're going to be going into an offseason now on a 10-game losing streak, possible 11 game. I don't know what's going to happen with the Packer game. I don't know if they're going to even play their starters. I have no idea what's going to happen in that last game, but I don't feel like we're going to win because we've lost 10 in a row. But when you're in a third year of a rebuild, you don't go 4 wins and then continue on and say, "Hey, we're put things up the wire." Here's what's going to happen now. Since we need to really focus on the linemen, and I know we're going to have salary cap money, but that's going to force us to go out. We're going to have to overspend, overpay for certain players that probably aren't going to be well deserved of some of that money. And you have to go into the draft and find those right players in the draft. And Ryan Poles, I just told you about our 3rd round pick, Amagaji, who didn't start or was talked about starting for the game yesterday, but he played so poorly the week before, he's not ready yet. And I don't know. Do we have the trust in him, Chris? Do we have the trust in him to go out there and find these stud tackles in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd rounds, or a stud guard, any offensive lineman, or are we going to sign the right guys, or are we going to overpay for the wrong guys? I don't know. See, that's the problem here. When you're coming, when you say we're supposed to be ready here to start winning, and we're losing now into the 3rd year, where do you go from here? And that's where the questions start coming up, and I don't know the answer to that, Chris.
Well, you got to get rid of the lineman that was there before you got there. And from what I've seen, Tevin Jenkins, he came in when Justin Fields was drafted, if I'm not mistaken. And on top of that, the left tackle, he's not, like, from my perspective, I don't think he's that guy for that position. And you have to go left tackle, guard, center, guard, and the only thing he really hit on is the right tackle. So when it comes to that, it's hard to trust Poles because it doesn't look like he's put his best effort to repair that offensive line or even make that offensive line, like, competitive. And then on top of that, it's like, if you can't pick up a zero blitz to the degree where you give him at least enough time to throw a hot read, you have a problem. As soon as he gets the snap, he's running to his right. That is an issue. And Ryan Poles, he has to prove that, hey, this year I'm attacking the offensive line. Last year he tried to build the team from the outside in. No, you got to do it from the inside out. He got all the skills players. Now you didn't really tend to the trenches like that, and it shows. That's why. Like, if he would have got a good signing in the line, like what the Panthers did last year, then we would be like, okay, he was trying to do something a little bit. But we're rolling in with almost the same offensive line. Like, you can't have that. This line was inconsistent. Was inconsistent the year before. And we're still running with 80% of that line is like the same guys. Like, that's not it. So he has to really tend to that offensive line. Free agency, draft, everything should be offensive line first.
Well, here's, by the way, guys, as we talk about Ryan Poles, is the clock ticking on him? Is this going to be it for him? We got one more game. We'll find out. I think he's going to be back next year, but when you lose 11 or 10 games in a row or 11 games in a row, you never know. The problem is he didn't address the line like he probably should have last year, but he did, in a way, if you think about it. He did go sign Coleman Shelton to play center, and he did go make the trade for Bates from the Bills, who's had nothing but injury problems this year. Now, some of it not to his own, and you feel bad for the guy for that. But so when we talk about his decision making, as of right now, he didn't make the right decisions, and he didn't make the decisions that has really upgraded this offensive line. And I think it's the easy thing that we could sit here and target. I think it's easy that we could sit here and just put all the blame on the offensive line. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put all the blame on the offensive line. Like I said, when you lose 10 games in a row, we got more to choose from here, and we got more to go over. It's not just on the offensive line. Listen, it has a hand in everything. We kind of had the points we were talking about with the coaching. And yes, the coaching has something to do with that. What is the offensive line coach? What is he like? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the strategies and the techniques that he's teaching, or what he's not teaching, or what he should be teaching. But when you have a unit also, when there's a lot of injuries, I think our offensive line depth is the next thing that has been really exposed here. And good teams, they have the depth on the offensive line. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they got depth on the offensive line. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, they've got some depth on. That's why they traded Bates last year, because they've got depth on their offensive line where they can afford to have that. And I just think this year, Chris, not only did we not have some of the right starters in place, but our depth was. I mean, it's a massive drop off when you go from the starting guard to the backup guard, or you go from the starting left tackle, which is Braxton Jones, who I thought did okay this year at times, but you see his drop off to Larry Borum. It's a massive drop off, and it's not even close. And that's why I've got the issues here with Ryan Poles, because I just don't think the depth that we have on this offensive line was addressed in the offseason of last year.
Well, because he's still trying to get the starting five together. It's hard to get the depth if you ain't got the starters set up. So it's a sad thing to look at this point. You know, the beginning of the season, you have such high hopes, and then you see some of the same inconsistencies again. And I mean, you know, there are injuries, but when your depth cannot be addressed because you're still trying to find your starters, like that could be a big issue based on this type of game where there's injuries can come in and you have to rely on that depth. Excuse me. Okay.
You get choked up, man. I could hear it. I can feel it in your
Yeah,
voice, man. You're choked up out of
like
it.
talking about it is getting me congested. It's like crazy.
Uh, thank you guys for watching the show today. Monsters of the Madhouse, Chicago Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel, YouTube page, and to get all the shows popping up on the phone. All the people in the chat too. Thank you guys very much. I see Jerome in there. Poles, he's gone. Cliff is also commenting in tonight. Then we had Ryan Poles said he's leaving. All right, Ryan, get the hell out of here, Ryan. That's what we're talking about you for. No, I'm just kidding, man. Thank you guys for watching tonight. Cliff is talking about Borum needs to be gone. Well, yeah, Larry Borum. I mean, we can make the argument he probably shouldn't have been on this team in the beginning of the year. He struggled a lot. But Jamari, as we wrap up, as we talk about Ryan Poles, and is this is going to be it for Ryan Poles or not? If we got one more game left. We're talking a lot here about the offensive line, and I think we can do a whole show. We could do hours talking about the offensive line, but it's not just all the offensive line. It's certain other areas. And the other area that kind of struck me, and listen, I think the defense held their own yesterday. I thought the defense, that was the best we've seen them play in a while. I think they did a very good job, especially for those conditions. Conditions on that field yesterday with the rain and stuff was kind of crappy. We got to put that in consideration too. Not giving the Bears an excuse for only scoring 3 points, but the conditions of that game was pretty crappy as well. But also looking on the defensive side, and the defense over the last couple of weeks hasn't played great. Let's be honest here. There's certain players on this defense that I think show up week in and week out and do a very good job. Like you see the Edwards of the world. I think I thought I saw him all over the field yesterday. Kyler Gordon, that guy was all over the field yesterday. So when we go into next year, we got certain players on defense that we look at. But then we got some other players like, why is our pass rush so poor right now? Why are we not getting to the quarterback over the past couple of weeks? And then what about our other linebacker? You got to think of this for a second, too, guys. We traded Roquan Smith in the first year of this rebuild. Now, was that the right trade or not? I loved Roquan Smith. I thought he was a great player. I was like, I don't know. I think this is a guy you build with, but I understand where you're going. You're doing a rebuild. You want to try to get the draft picks and stuff. And you replaced him with Edmonds. And Edmonds, I think, has just been average at best. I don't think he's had a really good year. He dropped an interception yesterday. That should have been an interception yesterday. And that was the guy that replaced Roquan. And then the week before that, I'm sitting there watching the Ravens, and I'm seeing Roquan all over the field, making tackles, being right there in the middle of everything, being the stud linebacker that he is. So that's a guy that Ryan Poles traded away. Ryan Poles traded away and said, hey, guys, I'm rebuilding this team. Just trust, and got the draft picks for him. So you look at that trade and you look at some of the replacements here, Jamari. Is there a certain player on defense that stands out to you? Is there a certain player on defense that maybe that wish that we could still be here with us, or maybe the ones that we maybe made the wrong signing with on defense for Ryan
Poles? In terms with like the guy that stands out for me, I do love Kyler Gordon. He's everywhere. I think Javon Dexter is also somebody that we can continue building around. I just think that they need more help on the defensive line. The people that's underwhelming for me, my opinion, is a guy like Tremaine Edmonds. Like you said, we got rid of Roquan and we signed him. They was trying to play Roquan out of position by putting him at the will when he was normally the Mike. I think that I'm kind of split between it because we wasn't playing the same system that he flourished in when we had Fangio. But I think they're gonna have to get some more pieces on the defensive line and on the offensive line. That's gonna help the defense like generate more pressure and stop the run. We need more depth on the line.
Yeah, especially. By the way, Zach Pickens yesterday was also a healthy scratch. That was another one. I saw that come out. I'm like, whoa, something I wasn't expecting. Everybody in the chat room too. I see Anthony checking in. Thanks for watching, Anthony. Also, Atmos, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Thanks for coming in the show. We got Brad joining in tonight. Brad, what's going on? So thank you guys all for watching the show tonight. And like and subscribe our YouTube page, please. And you'll see all the shows and you guys can follow along with us. You know, Chris, we're talking about the defense here, and we're talking about the pass rush, which just hasn't really been there, especially for the last 4 to 5 weeks. And that's really the hardest part about this is watching the defense. Once you don't have that pass rush, it's so easy to kind of break down everybody else. So I'm kind of going after Edmonds a little bit. I still think Edmonds is a very good player, but when you don't have a pass rush, it really changes the way your defense plays, because then your other players behind the pass rush has to really make plays on their own. Like the linebackers are going to be more noticeable making plays. Your secondary, they're not going to be able to be covering certain wide receivers or tight ends for a very long period of time, especially the really good ones that you guys see. Like we played the Vikings and the Lions over the last couple of weeks, and we don't hold them and we don't get a pass rush and they got time to throw the ball. Those guys are going to get open at some point. So what is the biggest for you, Ryan Poles, when you look at his draft and his bringing in some of the players, and you look at such the lack of our pass rush right now? Was there something that we seem to have missing that he could have possibly brought in, or is there somebody? Did we overpay? Did we overpay Montez Sweat? I don't think we did, but he's certainly not having the year that he should be.
It I don't really think you particularly overpay Montez Sweat. It's just that when you look at the pass protection, they're sliding over to his side a lot of the time, or you know, it's like the quarterback stepping up in the pocket. He got the guard to tackle on him, and it's a little difficult. Well, the thing about it is, what I think it is, and I think it's just the interior presence when it comes to that defensive line, the ability to push the pocket into the quarterback's face. That can make it difficult as far as the quarterback, because the one thing a quarterback does not like is a gap pressure. If you get a guy coming from that gap into his face, it's hard to avoid. It's like a lot less time to process, because the quickest way to the quarterback is straight. The thing is that when you have a guy around the edge, it's a lot more time to get to the quarterback. Now, time plays a big role when you play a zone defense, because now you having guys having to plaster and at some point have to find their man in their zone. And then after that, it's any man's game. Once you get about 5 seconds, it's very difficult for a defense to maintain good coverage for that long. So no matter what the guys you have in the back, if that line can't get pressure, you're going to get picked apart. And with Roquan, they got T.J. Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, and T.J. Edwards had a great year for last year, but this year it hasn't been just as great, hasn't been just as good. And we've seen this defense has been really, really sporadic. They'll have a good game and then they'll have a really poor game, or they'll have a good half and then they'll have a total letdown. And this last game, they had a pretty good game, even though the way their run defense had me scared from time to time. But they had a pretty good game, a good game, not a great game.
As we're talking about defense here, I have to say, I was pretty impressed the way the Seahawks ran their defense yesterday, because I felt like they were getting pressure on Williams, and they got some good playmakers. But I like the way they used their linebackers on that team too. Bryant, and Nassau, I'm going to say his name wrong, and he was all over the place yesterday. But not only with them, but their cornerbacks as well, with Witherspoon. And I like Mike McDonald. Here's a perfect example, guys, of what we were watching yesterday. This is what it's like to get the coach wrong, and what it looks like on the opposite side, where it looks like you might have the coach right. The two teams that played yesterday, between the Bears and the Seahawks are not much better than the Bears. I don't think they are. I think they got maybe a couple better position players than the Bears, but I really don't think they're that much better. I mean, I would take Caleb Williams over Geno Smith any day, even though if Geno Smith's healthy, I do think he's a pretty good quarterback. But Mike McDonald's their head coach. This is his first year as being the head coach. He comes from like the Harbaugh tree. He comes being a coach under Jim Harbaugh for Michigan. He was under John Harbaugh in Baltimore, so he was taught to be under their tree. And what I saw yesterday was a team that was well disciplined. a team that was disciplined, that didn't make a ton of mistakes. And I saw a defense. He's a defensive coach, just like Matt Eberflus. To put it that way, he was like Matt Eberflus, both defensive-minded coaches. But I saw a defense too. Not only they got to Caleb and sacked him 7 times, but I felt like they confused our offense quite a bit with some of the coverages and some of the blitzes that they were bringing along with some of their stud players. Leonard Williams has been around for a long time, and it looked like the Leonard Williams of like 5 years ago, man, when he was the Jets when he was making all those big plays. He was making big plays yesterday. So this is what it looks like. So I'm just saying, this is what it looks like when you hire a coach that looks like it could be on the right track. And I don't know Mike McDonald's going to be the best coach in the league, but you look at the difference yesterday. You see a team that's in disarray. You see a team with a general manager that looks like he's made some of the wrong picks. But then you look on the other side, you guys see a head coach that's young, that looks like was picked to be the right coach, and a first year that they are fighting for the playoffs right now.
It's the use of the roster that he has. When you look at how he uses that roster, it is to cause confusion where you don't know what they're going to show you on the back half, but at the same time, you don't know what type of pressure they're bringing. He ran this same particular type of defense in Baltimore where it's this pressure coming from everywhere. The edge, you have even stunts between the inside linebacker and the defensive tackle. That's what that was that's what led to Matabike having that great year last year for Baltimore. And that's the type of defense he runs. When it comes to Eberflus, it's not as much complex when it comes to a pass rush. You don't see a lot of stunts. You don't see a lot of games between the defensive tackle and the defensive end. And it's just everybody maintain their rush lanes, try to get to the quarterback. We play zone on the back end. Being that conservative is not the best thing unless you have elite talent on that defensive line. And we even though we have a guy like Montez Sweat, what about the other 3? Protection's going to slide over the Sweat. Now what? You have one-on-one matches, and you have to have those guys that can consistently beat those one-on-one matches. And that's where I'm saying it's the coaching, because we need a guy that can attack. We're going to attack you. We're going to try to punch you in the mouth. You can guess what coverage is in the back, but you got to block us first. And this defense is not made to do that.
Chris brings up some good points here, Jamari, as we're talking about the defense and we're talking about Ryan Poles. Is he going to be the right man for the job next year? Is time ticking on Ryan Poles right now as we talk about the defense? When we look at the draft next year, and listen, the free agent class, we're going to have a lot of time to talk. Listen, guys, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this over the next couple of months, especially when the season ends, about who would be the fit and the free agents and who we're going to draft. The free agency this year in general just looks to be decent. It doesn't look great. I don't see a lot of studs out there. Now that can change because a lot of teams are going to need to get below the salary cap, and teams that are like salary cap issues. It happens every year. Teams that are right around the salary cap are going to release players, and you're going to see some names come out. I'm like, oh, wow, I can't believe he's going to be out there. But with all the holes that we just talked about in the first part of the show, Jamari, about the offensive line, well, when you look into the defense, maybe the first round, because we're going to have a high pick, guys. Right now, we would have the number 9 pick. And if you see that stud defensive tackle in that draft, there's another stud defensive end over a lineman, what do you do if you're Ryan Poles, or heck, if Ryan Poles isn't the GM? Or do you have the trust in Ryan Poles to pick up the right guy? Do you have a trust that he'll get the right defensive end or the right offensive tackle?
I think if there's an edge there, they would definitely have to prioritize it. It depends on what kind of defense that we'll be running next year. I know, like with the Tampa defense, you definitely need that 3 technique. Like certain teams prioritize that. I still think that they should go for the offensive tackle, but depending on what's available and where we'll be picking at, it depends. It depends on like where we will. I'm sorry. It depends on who's gonna be on the board, what type of scheme we'll be running. But if it was me, I would definitely like try to get that offensive tackle, or try to trade back to accumulate some draft picks, because I know we do have a lot of draft picks like in the first 2 or 3 rounds next year. We gonna need a lot more to build up the front. So on both sides of the ball.
It's funny you bring that up, Jamari, because Chris, you talked about that before we jumped on here today. And we're talking about Ryan Poles. And thank you guys again for watching tonight, Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. We really appreciate you guys having along with us. Happy holidays, too. Hope everybody had a great Christmas, getting ready here for New Year's. Such a fun time of the year. Not so fun when you know your team's out of it and we got, one game left. But I always look forward to this time of the year with playoff football. And there's some good games on this weekend that have a lot of playoff implications that I know I'll be watching tomorrow and watching on Sunday. But Chris, so Jabari just brought up the possibility, because right now we would have the 9th pick of the draft. That can change if we lose next week, or that can go up, that can go down. But I think it's pretty much been steady right there, number 9. Ryan Poles, when we talk, he does make bold moves. One thing we can't say bad about Ryan Poles is he will go out there and make the moves, and he'll make the bold move, whether we like it or not. But do we have the trust in him if we have the 9th pick in the draft and there is a stud tackle that is up there? There's a stud pass rusher up there. Or do you trade back and try to get more picks? And do you pass up on those? Think about this for a second, guys. Think about this. And I know it was a big hot topic when Jalen Carter came out, and that's the year we traded back. Jalen Carter right now is a stud for the Eagles. I don't know if you've seen what you kind of see it last year, and he's doing it this year with the Eagles. He's a big, big reason why they are where they are right now, and he's really having an impact on that defense. So do you go back and do you have the trust in Ryan Poles to trade back or make that correct pick at number 9?
That is the biggest what if we did this situation I constantly think of, because every time we see Jalen Carter make a play in the backfield, you'd be like, oh, he could have been in blue. Oh man. But to get back to the question at hand, I do trust it. I think the thing I don't trust is his later round picks, but his early round picks, as far as like offensive line, I believe he got it right when it came to the right tackle. The thing is, unfortunately, my thing is, will he be able to address the interior, the defensive line, and will he be able to address the rest of the other spots that need to be filled up in that offensive line? I have a bit of trust because he hit on the first round pick, but outside of that, I believe the back half, the second, third, if he goes for offensive line within those parts of the draft, I don't really have a lot of faith in. Um, Unless it's defense, then yeah, if you talk about defense, secondary, he had the two rookie corners last year that played well, but it's when it comes to offensive line play, I don't trust them in the back half of the draft, and that's where you have your sleepers, your booms, your busts. That's where a GM makes more of a reputation for himself.
Yes, he does. To find those players. You know what's interesting, guys, when we talk about this, and thank you guys in the chat room too, Brad and Jerome, and I see Zach just coming in right now. Thank you guys for watching tonight. And I see Cliff saying of Trey Smith, he's on the Chiefs. You could overpay him as a guard. I also saw a second ago from, I'll have to bring it back up here in a second, from Cliff talking about you put a couple of great guards on the line and make the guys around them have to do too much. I like what the Detroit Lions have done. We're here for this year, and think about this for this year. This is what I feel like. If you want to build your offensive line, I think they got the blueprint to do this. So they draft very well. We know who they've drafted here. We've talked about it on the show. You know, Sewell, their stud tackle, and Ragnar, some of these other guys that they have drafted. But you know what else they did? When you hit on draft picks like that, when you hit on those type of players, and you hit on tackles that are stud tackles, are going to be there for a long time, then you can go out and get a Kevin Zeitler like they did, who's playing guard for them this year. Kevin Zeitler, is he a good player? Yeah, he is a pretty good player. He's a good player on a good team. He's probably not a great player on a bad team. He'd probably get exposed a little bit, but that doesn't matter. If you get a good player like him, they signed him in the offseason. They stuck him right in there, and he's fit perfect for them. And he doesn't have to do too much. He's done everything that he's needed to do on that offensive line, and that offensive line has been great. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you go into the draft and you trust your instincts and you find those stud tackles, and I think tackle is the most important position. That left tackle, I think, is going to be so important going into next year, just because of the tackle play that we had this year and in last year, and the depth of our tackle and how exposed our offensive line has because of that tackle spot. If you go find that stud tackle in the draft, then I feel like you can go and start complimenting some of these other players like a Kevin Zeitler that you can go out in free agency and get, and it wouldn't expose it too much. Unless I'm missing something on that part, do you go find that stud guard that's going to be a free agent? I guess it all depends on who's going to be out there or not.
Yeah.
I
It does. Oh,
sorry,
my
go ahead.
bad.
No.
All right. I was gonna say I definitely agree with you on like it depends on like the free agency. They gonna have to make the free agency signings first before the draft. Um and like Chris has said, I'm not sure about trusting polls with the late round picks. Like and also it like I said, it also depends on who do you bring in that offensive line coach to coach these guys up next year. Because in Detroit, like it's not like they making that happen just out of nowhere. Like they have the guys to coach these guys up too. So I think first like priority is to get the update this coaching staff, and then that's when we can start worrying about like the personnel going forward. Um I think we definitely have we have a lot of holes on offensive line. I think the priority that we should get, like you said, left tackle and definitely center, because there's been too many times where guys is coming up the middle. The snap is like at Caleb's feet, and he has to like bend down catches, stuff like that. So yeah, we got a lot of work this offseason.
A lot of work, man. I mean, to say the least, that what we're breaking down is just part of it, man. We didn't even get into a possible new kicker. We didn't get into like possibly some more depth into the back end. I mean, there's a lot more that needs to be done here. That Chris, to Jamari's point, we were talking about the tackles, and then Ryan Poles. Do we have the trust? Do we not have the trust with him? Um, I kind of brought up the Detroit Lions. Now, are we gonna be able to build like the Detroit Lions? So far, he's proven that I don't know that answer to that question. But is there another way you would build the offensive line outside of a tackle, or less? I guess it depends what you see in free agency as well.
Well, when you brought up earlier, Matt, the Kevin Zeitler move. What the Kevin Zeitler move was, he provided veteran leadership because at one point in his career, well, multiple points of his career, Kevin Zeitler was one of the best pass blocking guards in the game. So when you have that along with already very talented offensive line, you provide that type of leadership, and you could teach things that certain guys that are on our team right now, they don't really have that toolbox to teach certain things to, like, to improve this offensive line. And you can have the talent, but if you don't have the leadership, you don't have the right coaching involved, what we have is a bunch of talented guys all failing at their job. And we don't need that. What we need is the right coach and the right talent and the right, I'll say, veteran leadership on top of that. Because veteran leadership can go a long way as like another coach on in that room too.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and guys,
I'm a little congested right now.
oh no, 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 that dude. Listen, man. I'm like, I had COVID about a month ago. My girlfriend was in the ER yesterday morning because she was getting checked out for no. There's something going around right now, man. That's not that. I'm just like knocking on wood every day, taking my vitamins. Hopefully that, hopefully that we all stay healthy here for the holidays. We got a couple more minutes left here on Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching tonight. Like and subscribe on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. You guys can check out some of our past shows, some of our shows coming up, as we're gonna have a lot more. We got a lot more to break down with the Bears here, especially over the next couple of months as we get into the offseason. What the hell is going to happen with the head coach and who are we going to hire as a head coach? I don't know about you guys. So we've talked a lot on the show about we talked about Brian Poles. He's kind of on the hot seat right now. Is this it, Ryan Poles? Are we going to get him after the last game of the year? We're talking about some of his moves, making the wrong moves, the right moves. What coaches are you going to bring in? Some of the hot coaching names. We talked about that on this show. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of getting sick about the kicker talk too. And it reared its head away in the game again yesterday. At the end of the game, when we're driving down the field, now listen, we had some more bad clock management and time issues, as we always do with the Bears. But when we have a kicker now, and you don't trust the dang kicker to go out there and try to tie up the gang, it it drives me insane that we have to have this conversation. And I'm just keeping it a little bit to the end here, that we have to have this conversation about the kicker and his trajectory, and if can he make a 55 or plus kick? Is his kick going to get blocked? And on top of everything else, that we have a list of things that get right or are we going to get wrong, we have to start thinking about a freaking kicker now. Do we have to even think about? I think it should be last on the list in it, but I'll start with you, Jabari. As like, is that going to be on our list for the season next year? Do we have our kicker? Do we have the wrong kicker going into this season? Do we get that wrong?
I don't think we have the wrong kicker, but I mean, you can always upgrade at the position. Santos has been a good kicker for us, but once we get late in the season and let's just say next year when we do start playing deeper into January, um, like these kicks is gonna they actually gonna mean something, especially in the playoffs. So I think if there's somebody in the draft or in free agency that we can get that has a strong leg and we don't have to talk about trajectory and stuff. Why not? I know they just extended Santos, I think last year, but you can all. I mean, that didn't stop the Bears from drafting Taylor this year when we moved on from Trenton Gill. So I think if they can find somebody, they'll. Why not sign a guy with a stronger leg?
What do you think, Chris? Kicker 5th round? Yeah, just say yes, man. We're gonna do kicker 4th, 5th round. We're gonna draft that kicker for this year's draft.
I wouldn't draft the kicker that high, but I would say at the back end, probably 7th round or undrafted. If you can find your guy at kicker, go right ahead, take a stab at it. I believe, like we should have a little bit of competition at kicker, and may the best win out of that. It won't hurt nobody. You know what I'm saying? If anything, the kicker that loses, he got something on film. But I don't think we run in here into this offseason thinking, yeah, we're secured at the kicking in the kicking area game, the kicking game. No, I don't. I wouldn't do that. I believe we try to get better at every position if we can, and whatever happens. But the point is to be a better team heading into next season.
Everybody in the chat, by the way, I see Sco 6 Trey and everybody talking about the kicker right now. Cliff saying kickers and punters have jumped up a level recently. Yeah. How about that punter too yesterday for the Seahawks, man? I mean, you talk about we have a good punter. That dude was knocking out bombs, man, and changing the field position of that game. It's crazy to me that we even have to talk about this. And the only reason why I bring it up is because of the things that have happened to us this year, the certain things that have happened to us with the block kicks and yesterday at the end of the game, the 2 minutes, the clock management, the time management, all that was bad. And they talked about that at the end of the game a little bit, how they mishandled everything, kind of like we do for every single game. But at the same time, when you're a team like the Bears are right now, where points matter, depending in games like that, you need to have that field goal kicker, man, that can go out there and kick some of these 60-yard field goals, 55. Now, yesterday might have been a little tough because of the weather and the field conditions and stuff like that. But just to bring up the fact of the kicker again, man, and I see, and I bring it up because I see it all over X. Whenever I go on X and I see on Sunday game days, I feel like that's what's always brought up all the time is the freaking kicker. And I'm like, all right. So I put it in my notes today. I was like, all right, I'll just mention it. But it could be something that could be on the list next year for one of our GM, for whoever, if Ryan Bowles is our GM. I don't know. We'll find out. Thank you guys for watching Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast tonight. We appreciate you to have us along on your Friday night, especially here during the holidays. And we hope you guys had a great holiday as we get ready here for New Year's, getting ready for the games this weekend, getting ready for one more game against the Packers. And then we're going to find the fate of Ryan Poles. Is the clock ticking on his fate? Is this going to be it for him? We're kind of breaking down of some of his moves, some of his good moves, some of his bad moves, the rebuild, the start of the rebuild, kind of where it's gone right now. So if we take a look at Ryan Poles in general here for the last 3 years, guys, obviously the trade. I love the trade. I love the trade we made with the Panthers. I think that's going to go down in history, and I think that trade with the Panthers has made a lot of other teams think twice now about what they're going to give up for the draft every year. I really do. I think that trade. I think teams see that trade and say we better be careful on how much we want to really give up for a quarterback. Now it looks like Bryce Young might be on the other end of this. He struggled a little bit last week, but he actually over the past 6 weeks has looked like he's looked better than he has. I don't know what it's going to turn out to be. I don't know if that's going to be better next year with better players, but it does look better. And it looks like, okay, I see why they've made the trade now, that there could be something there. But at the same time, I think Ryan Poles needs to get a lot of credit for that trade and what we got in the return for that. I think that's going to be my favorite thing that he's done so far as the Bears GM is getting that trade and getting Caleb Williams. For all the bad that we talk about Ryan Poles, there are certain things we can bring up. And for me, it's that trade with the Panthers. Chris, when you start thinking about some of your favorite moves that Ryan Poles has made, what's the first thing that sticks out in your mind?
The TJ Edwards signing. Like a lot of people thought that when you looked at Philly, their liability was in the linebacker position, and that's why he was let go. And then when we signed him, and him and Tremaine Edmonds, excuse me, he jumped out on tape more as the bigger hitter, the better guy in coverage, and the one making more splash plays last season. And it hasn't been the same, this year, but he could be that guy that can be the guy that maintains this defense in the interior, and also the Montez Sweat trade. Even though it hasn't produced a lot of statistical results, what he can do on the field, and if we have a supporting cast around him on that defensive line, he can take over and he can make things a little bit more difficult for the quarterback. And he also, being a good rusher, he actually gave that zone defense pressure, so they don't have to cover for about 5 or 6 seconds almost every other play. And in the drafting the two corners on the back end of the draft, no one saw that coming. No one saw. It's one thing if you hit on one DB. When you hit on two DBs in the fourth round and later, it shows that you have this eye for talent. But it's on the deep. What I'm seeing is it's on the defensive side of the ball more times than not. I need to see it more on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you bring up some good points, Chris. You really do. You talk about the great picks that he got on defense, and then the offense. This is what a lot of us are talking about. This is a big reason why we're at where we're at right now with where the Bears are at. We're talking most of the show today about the offensive line. Jamari, when you think of Ryan Poles and his drafts here the last couple of years, what stands out to you? Is there a certain pick, or is there something that we're missing? Is there something that we're missing right now that you take a look at and say, "Hey, man, this was a really good move for him"?
So the positives, I agree with Chris with um what's the name with the defensive backs. Um, Not only like did we hit on Brisker, um, Gordon, but we also got guys like Smith, who's been the kid out of Minnesota. He's a good player, good depth guy. Hicks can be good in spots. Like I mean, we could do better at that spot, but he's still he makes some plays every now and then. Um, in terms of like you said though, it's only on the defensive side of the ball though. Offensively, like it's a lot of guys that I thought that was gonna that was gonna be like foundations on the offense. Like got like a guy like Roshan Johnson. We barely use him. And then a guy like Tyler Scott hasn't even seen the field really this year. I mean, he got some good tackles last year last night as a gunner, but
He did.
uh, yeah, we definitely need to add some more. I think we need more speed on the team. But in terms of like the guys that we hit on, is definitely the defensive backs. Um, Caleb is definitely that guy. I think that's probably his best pick, honestly. Even though he still have a lot to learn, and that's gonna be the biggest asset on the team. But yeah, on the defensive side, I got the defensive backs as like the guys that's really shining.
I will give him credit for the punter too. Listen, I was kind of, and I still don't know at the end of the day if you take a punter in the fourth pick or fourth. Actually, it's not the fourth pick, fourth round, especially when you need some offensive line help. But the way that he's punted this year, especially for as bad as this team has been, and the way that our offense, the way the offense has played in the first and second quarters, just alone the first and second quarters of the games this year. I mean, I think the punter's actually done a very good job in putting the field position and putting the Bears to try to put that field position and change the way of the game. So, and he did that yesterday too. I thought he did. He had a really good game in that weather yesterday. As we talk about Ryan Poles here, thank you guys. We got a couple minutes left here. Monsters of the Madhouse, Chicago Sports Podcast. Thank you guys in the chat rooms as well. I see Laz in there. Poles needs to trade his third round pick. He's terrible in the third round. Well, we picked a tackle last year in the third round, and he's been great. Never mind. And Cliff, thank you to see you guys all in there. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. So, guys, as we start wrapping up here, we talk about Ryan Poles, and he's got one game left against the Packers, the Green Bay Packers, who has owned us here for the last 10 years. Matt Eberflus couldn't beat them. He hasn't had a win against them yet. And here we go for the final game of the year. Would this be fitting if they decide to move on from Ryan Poles? They go and play the Packers in Lambeau Field in Green Bay this weekend, and they lose, and the streak continues. And I don't even. Here's the thing about this game, guys. I don't even know if the Packers are going to be playing their starters. I guess it all depends how it plays out on Sunday. I have no idea if they're going to be playing. They're going to be resting their starters. If they're going to have nothing to play for, I have no clue. But Chris, would it be fitting if this is the last game of the year? This could be the last. This could be it for Ryan Poles if they go up there and lose.
I'm gonna still have a bit of faith to say no. When you look at the recipe we have right now, it's and from a roster standpoint, defensively good, offensively depends on how you coach it and the coaching staff. As far as everyone's concerned, you have an interim coach who's in over his head because it's like he went in for one job and now he's the supervisor of the job he went in for, and like that's a lot to handle. And for me, they have to pick the right coach. If the right coach doesn't rock with Ryan Poles, then okay, then we'll move on from him. But as of right now, you have to also think about who are you going to get as a GM. Like good GMs aren't made every other week. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a guy that can actually bring in a lot of talent, and you can see it from a certain instance that some of these deals, trades, signings are kind of steals, like it's hard to get a guy like that. So I say get the coaching right. If the right coach doesn't rock with the GM, then you can say your goodbyes. But if he rocks with the GM because he brings in talent and he has an eye for talent, yeah, you got to keep that guy.
What do you think, Jamari? Could this be it for Ryan Poles this weekend? Everything that Chris said right there, talking about the coach, the GM on the same page together. Can he find the right coach? If Ryan Poles sticks around, could he get the right coach and be on the same page? Or will this be it this weekend if they lose to Green Bay and make it 11 in a row to end the season?
Um, to be honest, I don't really think how they play against the Packers will affect the future, only because of the situation that we in with the with the head coaching position. I find it fitting that we do. It seems like every time the Bears is about to move on or has a decision to make, they always play the Packers and get embarrassed.
It is,
Um,
isn't it?
but I think that it's pretty tough because I talked about it with a friend actually. I was saying that um, it's going to be tough for the coaching candidates to decide if they want to come here because Poles is going to be on he has one more year left on his contract, so they're going to have to either let him go or extend him. I think because then again, it's like as a head coach, why would you want to go into a situation where he's a lame duck? My opinion, like if I was the organization, I would move on from Poles only because he had his chance to move on with from Eberflus last year. He said that was his guy. Like I know we like to say that he didn't get a chance to pick his guy when he came here in 2022, but last year when they was talking about it, he said I chose to continue with Eberflus. He's my guy. So it didn't work out. So my opinion, I think that they might as well start fresh and have everybody on the same timeline.
Well, we'll talk about it next week, guys, because we're going to break it down when they take on the Packers. It'll be the last game of the year. We're talking about Ryan Poles. Is he on the hot seat here? Is he going to be back? Is he not going to be back? We've talked about the good, the bad, everything around Ryan Poles and everything around the Chicago Bears. So thank you guys for watching tonight, and to our awesome friends, Bridges Scoreboard. Thank you so much, Bridges Scoreboard, Northwest Indiana, Chicago Sports Headquarters, Hall of Fame menu, some delicious beer. Be a great weekend to go out and grab some beer, some good football games on. You can go watch them there. That's bridgesscoreboard.com. Also to Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor as well. That is on Griffith Boulevard in Griffith, Indiana. You guys can check them out, take the family out. And to TC's World of Wonders, who's also been out here for a long time. They've been with us since the beginning, TC's World of Wonders. You can get your jerseys there. Whatever jersey you're looking for, they will have it for you. You can check them out at TC's World of Wonders. And to everybody in the chat room tonight, thank you guys for watching Monsters at the Madhouse. Like and subscribe on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. Jamari and Chris, first off, Merry Christmas to both of you, or happy belated Merry Christmas, if there's a word for that. Happy New Year to both of you guys. It's always great doing a show with you guys. I don't think I made sense in anything I just said there, but either way, I guess I should have just said happy holidays. Just said, shut up, Matt.
I'll just roll with the Happy New Year. I get where you coming from. We good here. We good.
Yes, sir.
We here. We here.
Either way, I've got nothing but love for you guys. I got nothing but love for you guys. I got nothing but love for everybody in the chat room as well. So we can't thank you guys enough. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube page as well. So Monsters of the Madhouse, guys, we will talk to you soon. And you guys have a great weekend. And we will talk to you next week.